I've read your books, and a lot of them are fade to black too. So it's interesting to me because I read all sorts of books. But why you made that choice to do more fade to black, and then also what's, romance versus intimacy, and how are they different, and how can you? Because I think there are so many people that want that in stories, but yet you've still created beautiful stories without having the other stuff in it.
I think, well, for me, I think if I was better at writing those scenes, I probably would write more spicy scenes, but I just don't feel like I'm very good at it. And there's so many authors who are very good at it. You know what I mean? Like I was just reading or rereading Tangled in Tinsel by Trelina Pucci, which is a Why Choose Christmas romance. And she's so good at it. You know what I mean? Like,
write that down.
I feel like,
I read that.
And for my books, I personally really like the emotional attachment better. I feel like that's where I really shine. And I'd rather put my energy into writing that than writing spicy scenes that I feel like I'm not very good at. But yeah, for me, it's the emotional attachment. And I think I'm going to lean more towards lower spice as I go on, and just sort of like up the yearning side of it, because that's just what I really enjoy writing,
We want to get into your baking. I think most people find this very interesting when they learn that you are a baker, you are a bakery owner, you bake for your other author friends. When this came before your writing, or were you always writing? What came first, the chicken or the egg, the cupcake or the book?
I started writing in high school, creative writing, and then I stopped for a really, really long time. Mostly because I was just busy working and living my life. I didn't have time for hobbies, basically, which is what writing was for me in the beginning at any rate. No, I started, I always loved to bake. I'm Sicilian. I grew up in an Italian household. Baking and desserts was always a big part of every meal and tradition. And what ended up happening was I ended up losing my job. When I was 27 years old, I was pregnant with my third baby in 3 years. And I very unexpectedly lost my job at 6 months pregnant. And I was devastated. I was very lost. I loved my job. I never wanted to do anything else. I really loved retail. And I ended up taking some cake decorating classes at a local Michael's just to sort of make myself feel better, distract myself. Like, oh, now I have time. And time is in quotes because I already had 2 small babies at home at this time. But I started taking these cake decorating classes and realized that I had a sort of a flair for decorating. And then after I had my baby, I told my husband, what if I made some cakes from the house for a couple of months just to sort of like pay the grocery bill until we figure out what we're going to do, because we couldn't afford for me to not work. So that's what I did. And I started Nadia Cakes out of my house with a newborn, a 1-year-old, and a 2-year-old, all in diapers. It was the hardest 2 years of my life. I had carpal tunnel in both hands. And I did by myself for 2 years out of my home what now takes 4 full-time people to do in my bakeries. I baked every cake. I did every delivery, every consultation, all the billing, all the decorating. I did everything. And I did it with 3 little babies while my husband worked full-time, commuting 2 hours each way down to LA from where we lived, to work his retail job. And after about 1.5 years of this, I was like, I can't keep doing this. Like, people that do what I'm doing have a bakery or a daycare. I was chronically exhausted. And my husband was like, well, why don't we open a bakery? And so we ended up, those advance checks that you get for your credit cards where it's like 0% interest for 12 months, right?
The thing they keep emailing me about?
We had really good credit. We couldn't get a loan because this was 2009 and they weren't giving out money. But we had really good credit. So we laid those checks out on the bed and we wrote out $125,000 on our advance checks and opened up the first Nadia Cakes location in Palmdale, California. And the day we opened it, we were so broke, we didn't even have money to put change in the cash register. We were that broke. Like we had nothing. It was like the month we were going to not make our house payment, not make our car payments, and the minimums that we were paying on these credit cards was astronomical. And we opened to immediate success. Like all the people that came and held my baby while I filled out their order form, they all came and they supported. And 3 weeks later, my husband quit his job to come be the CFO of Nadia Cakes. And this is what I mean when I say to have these non-toxic men in your life, right? Like my husband saw that I had the good idea and he was not threatened by that. He was not intimidated by that. He immediately quit what he was doing to lift up the business that I started because it was what was best for our family. And I always tell him, like, we wouldn't have any of the things that we have today if my husband had not been the support that he is for me in all of my endeavors and all of my careers. And then Nadia Cakes, we started going on TV shows. We went on Fabulous Cakes on TLC for 2 seasons, and we went on Cupcake Wars, and I won. We moved to Minnesota. I know it was. Those shows are so real. I could never do, like, they still message me and they're like, you want to come on this reality show? I'm like, absolutely not. Unless you want to judge, I'll come judge, I'll be the nice one.
Hell yeah, you'd be great at that.
Yeah, but they're so real. Like, the competitions are absolutely exhausting, stressful. I mean, it's, as you know, you've been on a reality show,
She knows that competition vibe. Good Lord.
Yeah. So anyway, we moved to Minnesota. We ended up opening up 2 more locations. And then once I had those bakeries up and running, I was very burnt out on the cakes. I decided to take a step back from the business and be more administrative, let my managers run my stores. And that's when I just started writing creatively again. And that's how I got my writing start. I picked it up at 36 years old and started writing and ended up with a book deal, and it all happened really, really fast. And I can't even believe where my life is right now, to be honest. Like, I pinch myself all the time.
A labor of love that you poured into that to be where you are. That
pinch yourself, but you also deserve it so much.
Deserve that.
And like, I get asked the question, how do you deal with imposter syndrome? I hope you don't have that.
No.
Because you really worked.
No, don't. You deserve absolutely everything you have. Oh my God. And so you've also announced a collection of 3 interconnected Christmas holiday novellas coming out in fall of next year, though. What can you tell us about them?
So they're very cute. I'm not going to make you cry at Christmas. I know all of my books always have a lot of depth to them, and they make you laugh and they make you cry. That's my thing. But I decided I'm not making anybody cry at Christmas because we're already seeing our family a ton, and it's very stressful. And we don't need to be crying over a little funny rom-com collection. So the moment of inception for this was I was thinking about the Hallmark movies, and how, this big city girl goes off to this small town and meets this boy and then just like leaves everything behind to go and marry him. And like, what if there was a sane best friend, right? Like, what if you are the best friend and your best friend calls you and says, I met this man in this small town 3 days ago. We're getting married. I'm leaving the firm. And what would you as the best friend say to that? Right. So that is the premise for A Married Little Christmas. There's three short stories. They all interconnect. And this sort of poking fun at the Hallmark franchise is the last of the 3 stories. This woman goes up there to convince her best friend not to marry the rando that she just met 3 days ago. And her best friend will not be convinced. And, she's at the bar, trying to think of her next move. What is she going to do? And she meets a man at the bar next to her. And he is the best friend of the groom who is also there to convince his best friend not to marry the random woman he just met 3 days ago. So they team up to break up their friend's marriage because you can't fall in love in 3 days, or can you?
Or can you?
That's amazing.
Oh, that's exciting.
Well, I'm excited to read that when it comes out in 2026. We'll be ready for it.
I'm ready. I'm ready now if you want to slip me anything. I'm just kidding.